As he crawls, CMPD officer Loveridge fires at him. Records say it was 14 times.
House, there's no justification for firing that weapon.
Belton survived, but with permanent injuries. By in court, she had heard the fired in the doorway, saw no officers left in the garage, and thought Belton was the suspect. Belton was the only black officer on the task force, and the suspect, Loveridge had been told,
This story right here is wild. A white female cop from Charlotte hit a black FBI task force agent multiple times, leaving him with life-changing injuries, and that's not even the worst part. This happened back in 2019. But the body camera footage has only now been released, which begs the question, did the police try to cover this up to protect one of their own? The FBI agent is now suing the cop but she claims she mistook him for a threat and fired out of fear. So in other words, she was so scared that she was going to target at anything that moved. Man, woman, child, dog, cat, bird, shadow, nothing at all until she ran out of bullets. If she's that easily scared, why is she allowed to be a cop and have a gun? If modern-day cops are so scared to do their job, then that means they're dangerous to the public because how bad is their training that they even each other? And there are several reasons you haven't seen this anywhere in mainstream media. All right, so here's the breakdown. This all went down back in November 2019 during a joint law enforcement raid in Charlotte, North Carolina. You had local police, federal agents, and task force officers all working together. One of those officers was Clarence Belton from Gastonia PD, who was assigned to an FBI task force. The target of the raid was suspect Larry McConey, who was being investigated for illegal substance dealing. The agents pulled up to the house early in the morning to execute the warrant. Agent Belton was inside the garage area suited up, armed and wearing his vest.
It's the early morning hours of November 1st, 2019. A man walks out of his home in northwest Charlotte. Moments later, an FBI task force waiting outside closes in as he runs back into the house. From Gastonia Police, this is Task Force Officer Clarence Belton. These are his task force partners, and this is CMPD Officer Heather Loveridge and her partner. They're not on the task force, but according to court filings, they've been called in for perimeter support. The task force has a search warrant as part of a drug. What's about to happen after this man runs inside has become the subject of controversy and a lawsuit that spent
2. Now the next part is genuinely disturbing. FBI agent Belton and his partner were about to use a battering ram to break into the suspect's house when Officer Heather Loveridge, for some reason, decided to pull out her gun and fire multiple bullets in their direction. Agent Belton was hit several times, and after he collapsed on the floor, he started crawling out of the garage. But as he was getting closer to Officer Loveridge, she continued to hit directly at him. Luckily, Agent Belton survived, but he sustained serious injuries, went through several surgeries, and his career in law enforcement ended as a result. Agent Belton later filed a lawsuit against Love and the city of Charlotte, citing negligence and use of excessive force. But here's where it gets wild. If you look up articles from November 2019 when the incident happened, it really seems like they tried to cover this up because they refused to name the officer that targeted Agent Belton. In fact, they initially didn't even want to say whether Agent Belton by the suspect or another officer. On November 3rd, 2019, the Charlotte Observer reported that a police officer was last week during a pre-dawn FBI operation in North Charlotte. But authorities refused to say who fired that injured a Gastonia police officer who was working alongside FBI agents and 2 Charlotte McLennanburg Police Department officers. And according to this report, the documents that were made public did not say if the criminal suspect fired his weapon. But get this, CMP immediately placed Officer Heather Loveridge on administrative leave, and yet they still didn't want to say that she was the one, and they even refused to comment. The FBI also didn't want to say anything to the media and refused to answer questions about whether the incident was being investigated as a friendly fire shoot. But after Agent Belton filed his lawsuit, CMPD was finally forced to admit that she was the one who fired her service weapon during the operation. Agent Belton's lawsuit alleges that Officer Lidge fired 14 times from her weapon at him, striking him multiple times in both arms. But following the incident, the district attorney announced in July 2020 that Officer Leverage would not face criminal charges for the incident. 2 months later, on September 30, 2020, the CMPD convened an independent review board to dig into the case, combing through investigative files, hearing testimony, and examining the evidence. And during that hearing, Lidge reportedly told the board that she believed Agent Belton was the suspect whose house they were raiding. Meanwhile, the department called it a tragic mistake, and the case continued to drag on for years. Let that sink in. A federal agent is suing a local officer for shoot, and the case is still dragging through court. And only now, 6 years later, the court finally approved town seal parts of the body cam footage. And as you saw in that video, Officer Leverage didn't pause, didn't give out a clear warning, and didn't even try to identify the threat. She just started firing over 10 rounds in just a few seconds. So now I know you're thinking what I'm thinking. She just saw black skin and fired senselessly. And what's crazy is that she pretty much confirmed this in her testimony when she said she saw a black male matching the vague description of the suspect. But even if it's true that she got scared because she thought the person crawling towards her was the suspect, that's still not an excuse. If you're that easily spooked, you should surrender your badge immediately because you are a danger to others. And what gets me mad about this case is that mainstream media is completely silent on this, and only a handful of small local news channels reported it. Now imagine if the roles were reversed and this was a black officer who hit a white FBI agent that many times. Not only would this be all over CNN and Fox News, but that black officer would have been charged years ago. And you should Google Agent Belton's lawsuit because his strongly hints that this was an attempted cover-up. So, according to his lawsuit, local Charlotte station WBTV filed a motion to unseal the body cam footage, but the district court repeatedly denied it and ruled that Officer Leverage's right to a fair trial outweighed any interest of unsealing the footage. But, as Agent Belton argued in his lawsuit, the district court's orders sealing the video footage violated the well-established rights of the press and of the public to access judicial documents and records. And get this, Agent Belton also revealed that Officer Leverage was the one who filed a motion to seal several pieces of evidence, including video and body camera footage of the incident. So why did it take the court 6 whole years to unseal the footage? Well, now that the footage is out, they can't hide behind vague statements anymore. People can actually see what happened. And what happened is that this officer fired indiscriminately at a black man without even pausing for a second to check his identity. Also remember who she thought she shot an unarmed dealer crawling out of his house 14 times. Not a murderer, not a rapist, not a kidnapper, but a dealer. So yeah, no matter how you look at this, there's no justifying it. This wasn't just a tragic mistake. You don't fire 14 times by mistake. And when the person you're firing at turns out to be an FBI agent and you still have the audacity to try and block the body cam footage from being released, that tells me the system failed on multiple levels. Actually, scratch that. The system works exactly the way it was designed to.